Rico Harris, born 1977. He was a well-known basketball player for the Harlem Globetrotters. He played from 1999 to 2000. However, his dependence on alcohol really got to him and he was forced to stop playing and to get a different job. But that didn't work out for him either, as he was later fired. After this, in 2014, he planned to live in New Jersey with his long-distance girlfriend that lived there. He just visited his mom in LA and he headed out to go see his girlfriend. Sadly, he would never make it there. His car was found abandoned at the side of the road in Sacramento. The car was out of gas and had a nearly dead battery. In his car was his backpack and phone with a video of him from that night. Harris was nowhere to be found. Now, days after his disappearance, people say that they saw a giant person walking around State Route 16, which could have been Harris because he was 6'9". So it could be that his car broke down during the drive and he left on foot to go try and find help. But we don't know what happened to Harris after that, and he was never seen again. Okay, bye-bye. In 1938, Alfred Beilhartz and his family and 10 other siblings were out hiking at a park in the summer as a vacation. They went to the park so they can do some fishing and hiking in the mountains. As they were hiking, Alfred was in the back of the line and he was falling behind. And when his parents looked back, he was nowhere to be seen. They could not see him anymore. And he was missing. His parents panicked and they just assumed that he couldn't have gone far. They first thought that he had fallen into a river. And as they searched for him, they searched the river to see if he had fallen in there, and he was not in the river. They had difficulty picking up his scent with dogs, and the search was called off. Now, there have been couple sightings of Alfred. One couple said that they saw him at a place called Devil's Nest. And once they saw him, he was jerked back out of sight, as if somebody had pulled him back. And they don't know what happened after that. And we don't know what happened to Beilhartz after that. Okay. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye. I know this was a little fast and short, but I just remembered what I read about it. Okay. Bye. On October 3rd, 1955, the NV Joyita left Samoa to go to the Tokolo Islands. It was supposed to make it there in 2 days, but when it was long overdue, a search and rescue team was launched, but had no luck in finding the boat. 5 weeks later, it was partially submerged in the water. There were no signs of passengers, and 4 tons of cargo was missing. Inside the ship, they found a radio set, the International Distress Channel, an engine completely covered in mattresses, and a doctor's bag that contained bloody bandages, and every lifeboat was missing. What's odd is that lifeboats are easy to spot for rescue, and not a trace of any of them was ever found. Also, I forgot to mention that it was spotted 600 miles away from its intended course. Okay, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. In 1958, the Martin family left their home at around 1 p.m. in their station wagon, but that day they never returned home. When they didn't return, friends called police. Witnesses say that they saw the family eating lunch at a cafe, and the waiter said that they left and headed toward the Dalles. When Detective Graven went there, he saw tire tracks leading into the Columbia River. Then there was a gun that was found in a stolen car that was completely coated in blood. A man found the bloody gun and turned it over to the police for evidence, but that didn't turn up anything. Detective Graven connected the gun to the Martins' older son, Donald, who was in the Navy, and a few years earlier, he was accused of stealing the gun from a department store. Then, 5 months after the family disappeared, clothing were found in the Columbia River. Then, a few days later, the bodies of Sue and Virginia Martin were found, but badly decomposed. As soon as they find the vehicle, they will soon find the Martin family. On September 6th, 2009, Mel Nadil was on a hunting trip with his friends in Santa Fe, New Mexico. On that day, he told his friends that he was going to travel out a bit further, but he would be back before nightfall. However, that night, he never returned. He left his Jeep near the campsite with most of his gear locked inside, including his backpack, phone, and GPS unit. What's weird is that he usually carries his GPS with him. Dogs traced his scent about 50 yards from the camp until his scent just vanished, as if he vanished in the thin air. People thought he was attacked by a wild animal such as a bear, but there was no torn clothes or blood found anywhere. And another thing, police found a pair of women's pants in his Jeep in the camp. People thought he may have ran off with a woman, but his wife claims that he's liked his pants to fit tight, so they were probably his. To this day, nobody knows exactly what happened to Mel Nadil, but what do you think happened to him? Okay, bye-bye. Brandon Swanson, born 1989, on May 14th, 2008. He celebrated the end of spring at a party with his fellow classmates. After a while, after having a few drinks, he went out into the night. After driving on the road, he drove his car into a ditch. Luckily, Brandon was okay and he was not hurt. He called his parents, asking him to come pick him up. And when his parents went there, Brandon was nowhere to be seen. His parents told him to flash his car lights so they can see him, and his parents did the same, but they couldn't see each other's car lights. His parents said, we're flashing our lights, but neither of them saw, as it was just darkness. At that time, Brandon and his mother had a spat, and Brandon ended up hanging up the phone on his mother. And his mother called Brandon back, apologizing to him. His father, Brian Swanson, said that he was going to drop Annette back home and go pick up Brandon. They agreed to meet Brandon at Linwood Tavern. As Brian dropped off Annette back home, he went out to go pick up Brandon. They were talking on the phone for 47 minutes. Now, Brandon thought he was in Lynn, and as they about 47 minutes into the call, Brandon yelled, "Oh, crud," and then the phone disconnected. Now, I know that's not what he actually said. He said, well, I'm not going to say that word. I'm not even going to pretend to say it, but it was a bad word, and this is a family-friendly channel, so I'm not going to say it. Brian Swanson later said it sounds as though his son had fallen down or possibly slipped. They repeatedly called Brandon back, but he never answered the phone again. All the calls went straight to voicemail. There is a theory as to what actually happened to him. His father thought he heard his foot slip, and there's another thing, that he may have fallen into the Yellow Medicine River. At that time, the Yellow Medicine River was the deepest it had ever been, and the waters were flowing rapidly. police dogs did trace his scent to a river's edge, but his scent continued on as he had got out. They traced his call to Porter, Minnesota, about 25 miles away from where Brandon said he was. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. On April 1st, 2006, Brian Schaffer met up with his friend William Clint Foran to go to a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Very ugly name. The two would go bar hopping all night before going back to the Ugly Tuna just before 2 in the morning. Security footage of the area shows Brian Schaffer entering the bar, but he never came out of the bar. But Brian Schaefer wasn't reported missing until Monday when he didn't show up for his flight to Miami where he was supposed to spend spring break with his girlfriend. Many theories have came up about what happened to Brian Schaefer. Many people think that he's still in the bar somewhere. And another thing is that people think that that he was killed in the bar and that the workers covered it up. Nobody knows for sure what exactly happened to Brian, but all of his friends took a lie detector test, and all of them passed, except for William Clint, who failed the test. He also refused to take a lie detector test. Okay, I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. William Morgan, born 1774. He was a failed businessman. In 1876, he was rejected from being inducted into the Freemasons Society of Padua, New York. I think that's how you say it. I might have pronounced it wrong. Sorry about that. In retaliation, he planned to publish a book revealing their secrets. 14 U.S. presidents had been members of this fraternity, 2 of which were assassinated. Morgan was arrested on fabricated charges for not repaying a loan and stealing a shirt and tie. He was bailed out and boarded a carriage that went to Fort Niagara the next day. However, Morgan never made it and was never seen again. Even the president at the time, John Quincy Adams, blamed the Freemasons for his disappearance, but nothing was ever proven. The Freemasons responded saying that they paid Morgan $500 to leave the country, claiming he was still alive. His body was never discovered, regardless, so they may never know what actually happened to him. Before I end this episode, I want to say, the buzzing sound you heard in the first half of the video was the TV in the living room of my aunt's house. Okay, bye-bye. On October 31st, 2001, Cindy Song decided to take a break from her studies and went to a costume party to celebrate Halloween with her friends. The trio stayed until about 2 o'clock in the morning. She was dropped off by her friends back at her apartment, the place she called home. This was the last time anyone saw her or heard from her. Cindy's roommate returned home from visiting family that day, but she was not really concerned at the time because nothing was out of place. But after 3 days went by, her friends started to grow concerned about her. When the police analyzed her apartment, it showed that Cindy did reach her apartment as the bag she had from the party was present, and her false eyelashes were there too. Also, her phone was also in her backpack. There were also tickets to a concert that was supposed to take place a few days later, and there was also a receipt for a computer that was scheduled to be delivered. Now, a criminal named Paul Weekly described a person that matched Cindy's description. He said that he kidnapped a woman in an area and killed her, who who he thought was a prostitute. He also killed many others. Now, the police did find the bodies of the other people, but never Cindy's. So they may never know what truly happened to Cindy. Okay, bye-bye. On July 10th, 1971, Douglas Legg, I might have said that wrong, sorry, but was hiking with his family, and on his family claims that he was like a mini woodsman. There's no way he could get lost, and they hike the areas so often. But on this day, however, things changed. His uncle noticed poison ivy while they were walking and instructed him to go back to change into long pants. Douglas turned back to change, but however, he never returned. Now, as I said, he was like a mini woodsman. There was no way he would have gotten lost. And the cabin was only a short straight walk from where they were. Dogs traced his scent about 30 miles over difficult terrain. But however, there's no way Douglas will wander off that far. People thought that a bear must have got him, but they would not drag their prey that far. And his family thinks his friends had something to do with his abduction, but we may never truly know what actually happened to Douglas. In 1969, Dennis Martin was on a camping trip with his family. It's something they did every Father's Day. Every year they would go to the Smoky Mountain National Park to camp. At the campsite, Dennis and his brothers decided to prank the adults. They decided they were going to jump out from different sides. But shortly after the prank, they realized that Dennis was missing. He was apparently hiding in a bush near the site and mysteriously vanished. The search for him became the largest in the National Park Service history. Now, the only possible lead to this case is some people saw that they saw some bear man with something slung over his shoulder. It was about the size of a small child, and that could have been Dennis. Anyway, bye-bye. See you in the next episode. Bye. In 1975, Jackson and Martha Wright were driving to New York in their vehicle. Now, the road they were on went into the Lincoln Tunnel. They started to slow down a bit. Now, they had the air conditioner on, and Jackson was wiping the windshield with his hand on the wheel. Some condensation had formed on the front and back of the windows because of the faulty conditioner. Now they decided to stop, and Jackson grabbed rags, and Martha moved into the back seat, wiping condensation off the back window. She does not leave the vehicle. When Jackson wiped the front window for a few seconds, and then he looked back, to his surprise, Martha was not there. At first, he thinks it's some kind of a joke. "Martha, where are you?" he said, in fear in his voice. He then got out of his car, trembling. "Martha!" echoed throughout the tunnel. Martha Wright had simply vanished into thin air. Now, you may think that her disappearance had something to do with her husband, Jackson, who might have made the whole story up, but due to lack of evidence, they could not prove it. It almost seemed like that Martha Wright did not exist at all. Now, maybe the mole people took her. Now, what are the mole people, you may ask? Well, the mole people are people that live in tunnel. Well, not exactly, but they refuse to live like normal humans. They are real people, but they don't act like a normal citizen for some reason. They can see in the dark. What if, on that day in 1975, the mole people went up to their car, quietly opened the door, grabbed Martha, and drag her into their lair? Now, the mole people are fake. Of course they are fake. They're not real. But police could not find any evidence of her disappearance. Martha Wright had simply vanished.